Good morning and Happy New Year. It is so good to be with you this morning. It is good for all of us to be together this morning. As we gather together, let me share with you some words from the Unitarian Universalist minister Clark Dewey Wells. And by the way, these are the same opening words I've used on the first Sunday of a new year for many years, but they seem particularly apt this morning. We cannot enter the new year clean and pure as the shiny babes pictured in New Year's illustrations. Neither we nor the world work that way. We enter a new year bearing the incrustations of our time-worn past. We collect over our lifetimes scores of scars, and no amount of New Year celebrating or cosmetic surgery can conceal them. We get permanently bruised from falls out of our cribs, at play, in barns, in fields, and in kitchens, from collisions and escapades, illnesses, and war. We collect scars on our thumbs, fingers, hands, around the eyes, and vaccination scars, acne scars, appendectomy scars, a lifetime of lesions on the back, belly, our knees, necks, and ankles. But if our marked hides testify to our vulnerability and fragility, they also tell of our durability, the transfiguring into the baklava of our tissues, the toughness of our skin. Amidst the brutalities of life, our scars witness to the persistent, countermanding mysteries of healing, reknitting, rejoining, recovering, as miraculous as any birth. We cannot enter the new year smooth as babes, but we do enter as survivors, often enriched, tougher, wiser, and seasoned by life's struggles, readier for the time to come. Our scars signal more than lamentation, not injury, but renewal, not grief, but reconciliation, not ruin, but restoration, not the old year's accumulation of woe, but the new year's reality of healing, strength, and hope. Come, my friends, with our hearts open to both the challenges and the possibilities that this new day, new week, and new year bring. Come, let us worship together.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the
Good morning. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to build a Unitarian Universalist community that transforms lives and empowers people to serve the world. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home.
If you are able, please follow along in your hymnals to hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This earth, though all the world would grow, looms into a shrine. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Good morning. I'm Josh Schaefer, a member of this congregation. If you're visiting us for the first time today, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared beliefs. That means that whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you're welcome here. That also means that as Unitarian Universalists, we seek wisdom from many sources, but affirm our own experiences and our own conscience as the best authority for our shared beliefs. Everyone is invited to join us for social hour immediately after the service. But I also invite you to the lobby and to fill out a visitor form at our website, uufr.org/visitors. Although we can't greet each other in person, I'd like to invite you to greet one another now using the chat function on your screen.
Today, I'd like to read you a story called The Girl Who Never Made Mistakes by Mark Pett and Gary Rubenstein with illustrations by Mark Pett. For Beatrice Bottomwell, Friday began like any other day. She matched her socks, and of course she put her shoes on the proper feet. She remembered to feed her hamster, Humbert, his favorite food, broccoli, and when she made a sandwich for her brother Carl's lunch, she used the exact same amount of peanut butter and jelly. When she stepped outside to greet her fans, she didn't forget to say good morning and thank you. They asked if she made her bed. She had. They asked if she forgot to do her math homework. Nope. What about tonight's talent show, they asked. I'm ready, said Beatrice with a smile. After all, her juggling act had won 3 years in a row. Most people in town didn't even know Beatrice's name. They just called her the girl who never makes mistakes because for as long as anyone could remember, she never did. Unlike Beatrice, Carl made a lot of mistakes. He ate his crayons and drew with his green beans. He danced with his hands and played the piano with his feet. Carl loved to make mistakes. At school, Beatrice was on a cooking team with her two best friends, Millie and Sarah. To make their giant rhubarb muffins, they needed 4 eggs. Beatrice went to the refrigerator and carefully chose the biggest, eggiest eggs she could find. But on the way back, her legs slipped out from under her. The eggs went flying. Beatrice was about to make her first mistake, but she didn't. Whew, that was close, thought Beatrice. For the rest of the school day, Beatrice could not stop thinking about her almost mistake. On her way home from school, she watched Millie and Sarah ice skating in the park. Come join us, said Millie. It's fun, Sarah said. Beatrice watched them slip and slide on the frozen pond. No thanks, said Beatrice. At supper, Beatrice barely touched her food. Is everything all right, kiddo? Asked her father. I'm worried I'll mess up tonight, said Beatrice, and everyone will be watching. Worry? You don't ever make mistakes, he said with a smile. Beatrice tried to smile too. After supper, Beatrice got ready for the talent show. First, she woke Humbert from his nap. Next, she got the salt shaker from the kitchen table, and finally she filled a balloon with water. The school auditorium was packed. Beatrice felt her stomach jumping. She waited for her juggling music to begin. That's her, the girl who never makes mistakes, said a woman. Oh, we know she'll be perfect, said a man. When the music started, she tossed Humbert into the air. Next, she added the salt shaker and finally the water balloon. Beatrice didn't miss a beat. The crowd clapped with delight, but Beatrice noticed something odd about the salt shaker. The specks falling out of it were not white. Huh? Shoo! Humbert was so surprised by his sneeze that he grabbed the water balloon with his claws. Humbert, pieces of water balloon, and the pepper rained down on top of Beatrice. For the first time in as long as anyone could remember, Beatrice made a mistake, and it was a big one. The music stopped. Beatrice didn't know what to do. Cry? Run off the stage? The crowd sat stunned. They couldn't believe that the girl who never makes mistakes made a mistake. Beatrice looks at Humbert. He looks back at her. His hamster fur was soaked and speckled with bits of balloon. Beatrice let a giggle out. The giggle drew into a chuckle, and the chuckle became a laugh. The people in the crowd looked at each other and looked back at Beatrice. They began to giggle, then chuckle, and finally roar with laughter. That night, Beatrice slept better than she ever had. In the morning, no fans greeted her. When she got dressed, for no reason at all, she put a polka dot sock on one foot and a plaid sock on the other. Beatrice and Carl made sandwiches. This time, they put the peanut butter and jelly on the outside. Lunch was messy and delicious. Later, Beatrice found Millie and Sarah skating in the park. They fell a lot and laughed. Now, people no longer call her the girl who never makes mistakes. They just call her Beatrice. This week, I invite you to reflect on how we find a good balance between making careful plans and adapting when things change. Sometimes the very best things that happen to us are completely unplanned. And sometimes making mistakes is the very best thing for us. I am sending you so much love.
This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and the sorrows of our community. If you would like to share an individual joy or sorrow, I invite you to do so now using the chat function on your screen. I'd also like to share some joys and sorrows that I received through email. This morning, we join Zane and Isabella in wishing their father, David Patorti, a very happy birthday. Russ and Lynn Alcott welcomed their first grandchild, Llewellyn and McAllister Hoyt, born to daughter Amanda Alcott and son-in-law Joe Hoyt on December 30th. They're all so thankful for his birth and the medical miracle of in vitro fertilization that made it possible. Deepak and Kristen Mahato have a concern that Deepak's grandmother, who everyone calls Nani, has been hospitalized with COVID. She is a resident at an assisted care facility in Southern California. We send her so many healing thoughts. And Jill Denning shares the sorrow that her uncle died on December 31st after a short battle with cancer. Thankfully, he was under hospice care at home and he was able to have immediate family with him in his last days. Jill, we hold you in our hearts during this time of grief. As we reflect on all these shared joys and sorrows, as well as the joys and sorrows, the fears, hopes of our own lives, let's be together now for a time of stillness and silence, opening ourselves to that spirit between us, amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us toward a fuller experience of life. After the silence, we will sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. But now, let's be together in stillness and in silence.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, rings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The Rabbi Jonathan Sacks once said, "Make space in your life for the things that matter, for family and friends, love and generosity, fun and joy. Without this, you'll burn out in mid-career and wonder where your life went. Our offering is one way we try to practice generosity here at UUFR. Everything we do here is possible because of the generous financial support so many of you provide. We try to make being generous as convenient as possible. I invite you to see the instructions that will appear on your screen during our offertory. It's now time for our offering. Please be generous.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world, and a bold world for me. Stars may shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I feel so good. I feel so good. I feel good.
We have 3 short readings this morning. Our first reading is Dreams by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. Our second reading is an excerpt from Judith Vorst's book, Imperfect Control. I came across the concept of pathological persistence, and it is such a relief. We're brought up to believe persistence is a sign of character and that it's a positive quality. But there is also tremendous dignity and wisdom in being able to say, I can't do this. I can't fix this. I need help. I surrender. Our third reading is from the Tao Te Ching and is translated by Stephen Mitchell. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus, the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything.
I know this about myself. I am a person who likes to plan. I like making plans. Big plans for the future, small plans for the day, and best of all, big plans and small plans that fit together into a seamless strategy. Somebody once said that most people overestimate what they can get done in one day or 1 week, but underestimate what they can get done in a month or a year, which is why I like big plans broken down into smaller, doable parts. Let me give you an example. One day, Hiromi and I would like to live in Japan again. We may retire there. It's possible we might return there sooner. However, I know that if I'm going to have a fulfilling life there, I have to improve my Japanese ability, which has deteriorated a lot since I lived there 25 years ago. So at the very beginning of 2020, I set a goal for myself of being able to read 1,000 kanji by the end of the year. Kanji are the Chinese characters that are used both in Chinese and Japanese writing. To give you a better idea of what they look like, here's what our chalice lighting looks like in Japanese. Let's take a look at that slide now. I won't show off, but you'll have to trust me that I can actually read this now. I couldn't a year ago, but I can now. That's good. We can stop taking a look at the slide now. I figured if I studied an average of 4 characters a day, studied 5 days a week, and did this for a year, I would be able to read at a 6th grade reading level. One needs to know more than 2,000 kanji to be able to read a daily newspaper, but being able to read at a 6th grade level would be a good start, I thought. How'd this go? I mostly stuck to the plan, and I can now read about 1,000 kanji. Being stuck at home more often this past year actually helped. If I keep studying, I will be able to live comfortably in Japan if or when Hiromi and I return there. I've had plans like this my entire life. And yet, when I look back at my life, what strikes me is how often the plans for my life, in the words of the poet Robert Burns, have gone oft awry. What do I mean? When I was 13 years old, younger than my son is now, I decided I would be a journalist. So I started writing for the student newspaper. The summer I turned 16, I started writing for the local community newspaper. In college, I became a journalism major. When I was 19, I won an award for investigative reporting from the Illinois Press Association. My plan for a career in journalism was taking off. But then, during the 1988 presidential election, I became disillusioned with journalism, as only an overly idealistic young adult can become disillusioned. I was so disillusioned I even dropped out of school for a while, not knowing what I would do with my life. At the time, I felt like 6 years of my life had just gone down the drain. By the way, I eventually regained an appreciation for the very important work that journalists do, as well as the skills that I learned working in journalism, but it took a while. One day, while taking time off from school and browsing through my father's bookshelf, I picked out a copy of Will Durant's Story of Philosophy, and I read it cover to cover. On little more than a whim, I returned to college as a philosophy major and loved being one. After college, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but my plan was to travel the world. So I took a job teaching English in Japan for a year. My plan was to save up enough money and then keep on traveling. Well, that plan didn't work out either. I liked both Japan and teaching, and so ended up staying in Japan for 4 years. After my first year in Japan, Hiromi and I started dating. I really liked her, but I also wanted to be upfront and honest with her. So I told her on one of our first dates, maybe it was even our first date, that I wasn't interested in a serious long-term relationship. Of course, after dating for a year, we decided to get married, and this August we will celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. It was while I was in Japan that I decided to pursue a career in ministry, something that I had never planned on doing until I did. Hiromi and I returned to the United States so I could attend seminary in Chicago, and after seminary, our plans were to settle and live in California. Housing in California, however, turned out to be more expensive than either of us ever dreamed or could afford. So we unexpectedly ended up in the Pacific Northwest and lived there happily for 20 years. Both Hiromi and I very much wanted to be parents and dreamed of having biological children of our own. But after struggling unsuccessfully with infertility for 7 years, we decided to begin the adoption process. And we ended up adopting Kai from Colombia. And of course now, on most days, we can't imagine our life without him. For 16 years, I happily served a congregation in the Seattle suburbs, and for many years I thought I might spend my entire ministerial career there. But then an ideal-sounding position opened up on the UUA staff that seemed like a good fit for my skills and that would allow us to continue to live in the Pacific Northwest. When I first started that job, I thought I might keep that job until I retired, as my predecessor had. But after 3 years, I realized how much I truly missed serving a congregation. Now, I certainly never, ever planned to live in North Carolina or anywhere else in the South for that matter. But we've been here for 17 months now, 9 months of those spent during a pandemic. And while we sometimes still miss the Pacific Northwest, we are quickly acclimating to drier, warmer winters, and we quite like it here. Most of you have turned out to be quite nice too. And I'm proud of what we're doing together, even when the events of the past year required us to quickly make so many new plans. My life as I said, has not gone at all as I planned it. And sometimes I think to myself, thank God. Does this mean I'm considering giving up on planning for the future? As somebody who has an Excel spreadsheet to prepare for camping trips, I am probably constitutionally unable to give up on planning. But I have been reconsidering how I think about planning for the future. What do I mean? Last summer, I decided to give golf another try. Hiromi and I got matching sets of golf clubs as wedding presents many years ago. But until last summer, I probably used mine less than a dozen times, and Hiromi used hers even less. But last summer, looking for something safe to do outside, I decided to start going to a driving range. And sometimes I took Kai with me, since this summer he got tall enough to use Hiromi's clubs. In a phone call with my father last summer, who was then 78, he said, "I think I finally figured out my stroke." So as I was standing at a tee at a driving range a few weeks later, I thought to myself, I really hope it doesn't take that long. But I think I need to relax more, I thought to myself. I'm holding my club too tightly. I'm going to try to hold it a little more loosely. Well, it only took about 3 more swings before my club went flying 20 feet down the driving range, and I was unable to retrieve it without being pelted by other golfers. I walked over to a staff member. "Excuse me," I said, I lost my club and I'm not sure what to do." "Lost?" he asked. "Lost," I said, pointing out to the range. "Oh," he said, "hold on." He went off somewhere, and a bit later I heard an announcement over the PA system. "May I have your attention, please? A golfer has to retrieve a club from the range. Will you please stop your play momentarily while he retrieves it?" With every golfer on the range staring impatiently at me, I walked out onto the range to retrieve my club. At least Kai wasn't with me, I thought, or I might have found out whether it's actually possible for a teenager to die of embarrassment. Back at my tee, I thought about my grip again. Not too tightly, but not too loosely either, I thought to myself. And that's how I'm trying to think about planning for the future as well. Not too tightly, but not too loosely either. After all, if I hadn't gone out last February and bought most of the electronic equipment that we're using to live stream our services, we would have been in trouble in mid-March when we had to quit meeting in person. I think life is a lot like chess. It's always good to be thinking at least a few moves ahead, but maybe not too many moves ahead. For me, holding the future lightly means rethinking the role planning plays in our lives. I remember once reading that the plan for the D-Day invasion of Normandy fell apart as soon as the Allied troops hit the beach. But without a plan, the invasion never would have happened. When I reflect on my own life, well, a lot of my life didn't turn out as I planned it. If I hadn't made any plans at all, it wouldn't have happened the way it did either. I think that's what plans do. They get us started. They get us out the front door. They help us seize the day rather than seize the sofa. Holding the future lightly also means rethinking how much control I actually have over my life. I've always liked to think of myself as the composer or author of my own life, rather than somebody who has just been blown about by the winds of circumstance. I like to think of myself as somebody who has agency over their own life. I think we all do. However, rather than thinking about our lives as a book that we might plot out chapter by chapter before ever writing down a word. Or rather than thinking about our lives like a four-movement symphony, which might be composed from beginning to end before a single note is ever played. Maybe our lives are more like jazz improvisation. Perhaps there's an underlying structure and even an underlying progression. But at the same time, we are each improvising as we go along, responding to changing chords and keys of circumstance, playing at times in call and in response to those playing around us. These days, however, I realize our lives might feel less like jazz and more like a Second City improv sketch in which we are responding to outlandish audience suggestions. Holding the future more lightly has also required me to be honest with myself about fear. I know that one of the reasons I like to make plans is not just to get big things done. Planning also gives me a sense of control, or perhaps an illusion of control, in the face of uncertainty. Yet over and over again, life has taught me not to fear uncertainty too much. It has taught me that I, as a human being, am really bad at figuring out what's going to make me happy or what I'm going to find satisfying. It has taught me that when my life hasn't turned out as I hoped or planned, once in a while it has turned out even worse than I could have ever predicted or even imagined. But more often, it has turned out better. It has so often offered me unexpected opportunities for love, for work, and for so many other things that were beyond my limited ability to predict or even imagine. I don't think I'm alone in this. Too often, I think too many of us, so to speak, order something safe and familiar from the regular lunch menu rather than risk being surprised by chef's choice. If I had more traditional religious beliefs, I might tell myself, make sure your plans for your life don't interfere or get in the way with God's plans for your life. But I don't believe in an omniscient, omnipotent personal God who has a plan for my life, or anybody else's life. So I can't say that. But I can say, as I've gotten older, I've learned to simply trust life more. I suppose I've learned to believe or have faith or trust in serendipity. Without a doubt, this past year has shown us that life is sometimes randomly and unpredictably cruel. But it also sometimes, at least occasionally, serendipitously conspires to bring about good, novel experiences and opportunities for all of us. I'm finding that holding the future lightly is especially important to do now when so much is still uncertain. When will we as a congregation be able to start to come back together in person? If I had to guess, I would say spring at the earliest and fall at the latest. Beyond that, I have no idea. When I look a little further ahead in the future, I think about the fact that my time here at UUFR is limited. As a developmental minister, my agreement with the board is to serve here up to 5 years. What will you do next? What will I do next? Where? For how long? I honestly have no idea. Yet I find myself trusting that whatever happens, for all of you and for me, it will mostly be okay. Part of my next steps may depend on Kai, who's now 14. Will he go to college right away? Where? What will he study? Or might he do something else? I'm doing my best to encourage him to start thinking more about his future. At the same time, I'm also encouraging him to hold it lightly, to try not to be in such a hurry to decide too much too soon, to be open, to stay curious. I really wish somebody had done that for me, at least a little bit more. Further down the road, will Hiromi and I return to Japan someday? For now, I hope so. And I'm going to keep on slowly preparing for that possibility. But I'm also going to stay open to other possibilities because I know I'm not smart enough to figure out now with any certainty whether that will be the best plan several years from now. My friends, a new year is upon us. Dream some big dreams. Make some plans, but hold them lightly. Be ready to change them if they don't work out quite as you planned. Or even better, if some other, better, unexpected opportunity comes along. Keep on being careful. Please, my friends, keep on being careful. But also be open to the possibility of something new and wonderful happening in your life this year. So may it be. Amen.
If you are able, please follow along in your hymnal to hymn number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New.
If you are a newcomer, I hope you will join us for our newcomer gathering immediately after the service, and I hope everyone else will join us for social hour after the service as we experiment with our new breakout rooms. But now, as we in this time of worship together, may we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for this precious gift of life that we share among ourselves this very day. with ever more peace in our hearts, with ever more hope for our own lives and this world we share. Amen.